Good morning. My name is Corey Hansen. Today I'll be joined by Vita Albers as we look at our analysis of the design and installation of the automated baggage handling system at the Denver International Airport.
The presentation has the following outline. We're going to start off with the project description, followed by the background. Next is the timeline. We're going to spend a little time talking about the charter and stakeholder register. Next is the project update, since we talked last, followed by the things that went right and the things that went wrong. And we're going to finalize it by talking about what we could have done differently.
We'll start with a big picture overview of the project that we'll be talking about. BAE was awarded a contract to design and install an airport-wide integrated automated baggage handling system for the new Denver International Airport. The purpose of this automated baggage handling system was to reduce the amount of time it took to get luggage either to connecting flights or down to the baggage claim, with the ultimate goal of having luggage move so quickly and efficiently down to the baggage claim that it was waiting for passengers when they arrived. Before we dive into BAE and the baggage handling system, let's take a very brief look at the larger project that it fit into, the Denver International Airport. Based off its fairly central geographic location and its growing population and commerce, Denver is an extremely attractive spot to grow airline hubbing operations for both travel and logistics. Unfortunately for Denver, its current airport, the Stapleton Airport, couldn't handle the desired influx of traffic due to the fact that it only had 2 runways that could not support simultaneous landing or takeoff. Additionally, Denver doesn't have the best weather during the winter, and any cancellations or delays at that airport could easily disrupt traffic nationwide. Once they received the go-ahead and they started designing the new Denver International Airport, the design team wanted to make sure that they created the airport of the future.
The political interest for the airport expansion started in the late 1970s. Several candidates that ran for Denver city mayor made the airport part of their election campaign. In 1985, the site was selected, and 4 years later, the voters approved of the airport and construction began in 1989.
Here, we'll take a quick look at the case study timeline. In November of 1989, construction of the new Denver International Airport began. In December of 1991, BAE was awarded a contract with United Airlines to design and install a baggage handling system in their terminal. Then, in April of 1992, the decision was made that the Denver International Airport would have an airport-wide baggage handling system, and BAE's scope of work was increased from the United Airlines terminal to the entire airport. Unfortunately, in October of 1992, Chief Airport Engineer Walter Slinger passed away. October 1993 was the original anticipated opening date for the new Denver International Airport. Unfortunately, that had to be shifted to December of 1993 due to delays in construction. In January of 1994 is when the repayment of bonds was to begin, as that was the original scheduled date of beneficiary occupancy. Once again, they couldn't make the December 1993 opening date, so the opening date was rescheduled again to March 1994. Unfortunately, they were unable to make that opening date as well, and in May 1994, the German firm Logplan was hired to come in and complete assessment of the baggage handling system, and the opening date was rescheduled yet again. In August of 1994, based off recommendations from Logplan, airport officials approved a backup system of tugs and manual baggage system as opposed to the automated baggage system. At the same time, they notified BAE of fines of $12,000 a day from the time that the airport was originally supposed to open in October of 1993, and the penalty of having to pay for this backup system in the amount of $50 million. Finally, in February of 1995, the new Denver International Airport replaced the Stapleton Airport. In February of 1996 is when we are doing this presentation, and it's the data that we're reflecting on everything that happened within this case. Let's take a look at the project charter and some of the highlights. As far as the business case, we need to install a centralized baggage handling system provided by the airport for use by the attendant airlines. The thought behind providing the centralized baggage system and the associated maintenance was that we could help reduce the cost for attendant airlines and their hiring needs and hiring costs, as well as hopefully avoid any delays in repair, which could lead to lost revenue and headaches for both the airlines and the airport. For the business requirements, the system needed to be airport-wide. it had to have an automated baggage movement from terminal to terminal without the need of any manual labor, and in keeping with being the airport of the future, it needed to deliver luggage to baggage claim or connecting flights within 10 minutes of touchdown. In order to make a project of this magnitude happen, there were several assumptions. Some of the big ones were that BAE would have unrestricted priority access to all construction zones and good faith from DIA leadership and airline leadership on adherence to freeze date for design changes. These first two were absolutely necessary in order to get this project done on a tight timeline. They were already 2 years behind the ball on the work that most contractors have been doing with the airport, and in order to try to hit the October 1993 opening date, these first two were absolutely necessary in getting the project done. The third assumption is that a system of this size and magnitude would need a ton of power generation and a huge amount of physical space. So in order to be successful in completing this project, we needed to have appropriate power generation and a good amount of physical space to make it happen. Finally, we had to assume that public funding would continue through the completion of construction so that we could stay on budget and we had enough money to finish the project. Continuing with the charter, let's look at the constraints. The first is that there were provisions put into the contract by the City of Denver regarding the hiring use of local contractors as opposed to contractors that BAE would prefer. The second is that the date of beneficial occupancy was well before the estimated completion date of the system. Moving on to risks, as stated previously, construction on the Denver International Airport started in 1989, 3 years prior to the start of construction of the airport-wide baggage handling system. Due to this fact, there were several pieces of infrastructure that had already been built that would either have to be moved or halted in order to get the real estate necessary for this airport-wide baggage handling system. There was also inexperience with an automated baggage handling system on a scale this large. No one had ever done it. There were multiple contractors having to work simultaneously in the different terminals in order to try to get this project complete on time. And as always, when there's public funding and it's a political project, there's increased scrutiny on it. The project methodology is a traditional waterfall project life cycle.
The stakeholder register. Large projects have many stakeholders, and we identified over 135 different stakeholders. The key parties are Denver International Airport with Walter Slinger as the chief airport engineer, and later Gail Edmond, who took over Walter's position after he died. BAE Baggage Handling System with Gene DeFonso as project manager. The airlines with United as the original airline company to partner with BAE, and 20 other airlines who rely on the system to work. Government agencies such as TSA Security and Federal Aviation Administration. Funding such as Security Exchange Commission that is overlooking the bonds and other means of financing. Denver Project Management Team who is responsible for attracting a capable workforce. And finally Logplan, a German firm advised a reliable tug and cart system. Regular updates were given throughout the life cycle of the project. One of such updates was given on April 1, 1993. 1 year after the baggage handling system was awarded. The highlights were completions. The system was designed and system demonstrations was developed in a small Texas warehouse. At the time, half the conveyor belts were installed. The next steps were announced, with continued installation of conveyors and slides and begin installation of motors as well as gates. The timeline was presented and the budget was presented as well. At the time, we were under budget for finance as well as over budget for time. The issues that needed to be addressed, especially clear communication, unrestricted access, and clean electricity.
When reflecting back on the project, there were several red flags for both DIA and BAE that probably told them this project would not go as planned. The first is that of the 16 companies that DIA put out a request for bid to build the system, only 3 were received. Of those 3, BAE was initially not one of them due to the size and scope of the project. Both BAE and Logplan, the German firm, identified that the timeline was unrealistic to install the system. Finally, the airlines, which are the direct customers of the baggage system, were not identified as stakeholders and not engaged until well after the project was underway. Let's take a look at what went right. The first was the selection of BAE President Gene DeFonso as the project manager. He had a ton of experience, and it showed how important the project was to BAE. BAE's attempts at constant communication with both DIA and the City of Denver leadership was crucial. The decision to bring in LogPlan, a third party, after communication had broken down between BAE, DIA, and the City of Denver, was a smart decision. The decision to listen to LogPlan, build the backup system in order to allow the airport to open, was critical. And finally, the baggage system was functional for one terminal for a short period of time, but only for outbound flights. As we take a look at what went wrong, the list is huge, but we'll just focus on a few. First, there's a lack of leadership experience. After the passing of Walter Slinger, Gail Edmond took over, and while she was good, she didn't have quite the same command of the project that Walter Slinger did. The system was simply too complicated. Nothing that big or that complex had ever been done before. There were multiple change requests beyond the freeze dates, and that caused delayed opening of DIA by 16 months. Not only was the opening delayed by 16 months, but they were $560 million over budget. The communication lines were unclear. Each terminal had its own chain of command. In order to get something done in that terminal, you had to work through that terminal chain of command. There simply wasn't enough time to test and install a complicated system. Both LogPlan and BAE identified the unrealistic timeline, but nothing was done about it. DIA invited members of the media for a test run of the system, but failed to inform BAE about it. The test run didn't go well, but instead of BAE admitting the system malfunction, they simply said it needed more testing.
An important aspect of any project is the lesson learned register. This register gets updated throughout the project, and no project is completed without the final update and closing of this register. The lesson learned are: better clarify the scope of the project, so put limitations on the project design. Improve communication channels throughout and identify who has decision authority. The stakeholder management and engagement is vital and important. Depoliticize and contracting process. Listen to subject matters and experts. Learn from others and similar projects. And if the project is not feasible and the sponsor is not realistic, no amount of money is worth the damage to the company's reputation.
We thank you for listening to our presentation and hope you found this case just as interesting as we did. A few fun facts after the end of the case. In 2005, 10 years after the opening of the airport, United Airlines was the last airline company to abandon hope of using the automated baggage system. It just simply didn't work. And in 2019, 20 years after the airport opened, the current airport leadership didn't learn from the original airport leadership, as their current expansion of DAA is running 50% over budget. Sounds like they could benefit from looking at our lessons learned slide.